I grew up in, well, two places. I was born in Duquesne, back when it was a different place.
What was it like?
It was very nice. It was a traditional place where it was a working community. Everyone was, we'll say, more or less prosperous, and of course, very low crime area, that type of thing. Not like what it is now. It was before the mills shut down.
What did your dad do for a living?
My father was a steel worker. He worked for about 35 years or so in Homestead Works in the U.S. Mill. My grandfather worked in Duquesne Works his whole life, and both of them retired from there. They spent years there. They retired from there.
Was your mom a homemaker?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Yeah, we moved from Duquesne when I was in first grade to West Mifflin in the Kennywood area. In fact, if you know where Latina Pizza is on Kennywood Boulevard, that's where I lived for about 12 years. At that time, it was called Ted's Luncheonette. My dad was Ted.
Now, did you feel, because your grandfather and your father were both steel workers, that kind of that's where you would go in life when you were a kid? Or did you know, I don't want to do that?
Didn't want any part of it.
Why not?
Because I could see what it was doing to my father, shift work, and first of all, I'm not sure I could have handled it. My father went through a lot. He did the whole 8 to 4, 4 to 12, 12 to 8 shifts, and it was tough for him, I thought. That he worked and he provided a good living for the family. We were comfortable, and so that's not what I wanted to do.
What kind of a kid were you growing up?
What kind of a kid was I?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's kind of difficult to describe. I was a normal type kid, I guess. I'm not quite sure how to.
Were you bookish or adventurous?
I was bookish, yes. I was definitely bookish, yeah.
What kind of subjects did you like?
Science.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know if you remember the old science fiction movies of the 50s and the 60s. You do? Well, I always rooted for the mad scientist. In fact, that's what I became. I became a chemist. I have a PhD in chemistry, and I worked at the Allegheny County Health Department as a chemist, and I did postdoc work in nuclear chemistry at Stony Brook, and had a pretty good career in chemistry. I have about a couple of dozen publications in peer-reviewed journals, in fact.
Where did you go to high school?
Yeah, in West Mifflin North High School at that time. Duquesne High School for the first year, but then West Mifflin North was constructed, and for my senior year, it was on West Mifflin North.
And when did you graduate?
1962.
Sixty-
First graduating class, because it was being constructed at that time, yeah.
How did you end up getting into the Army?
I was drafted.
When were you drafted?
1966. I had a 2A deferment, 2S deferment, I'm sorry. Yeah, I went to Penn State right out of high school for 4 years, and during that 4 years, I had a 2S deferment, and then I was drafted after I graduated.
So you were a chemistry major at Penn State?
Yes, I was a chemistry major at Penn State, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I graduated in general science because I couldn't pass some of the courses as an undergraduate.
And did you obviously knew there was a draft on, and that probably when you graduated, you would have to, either be drafted or join one of the branches of service. But early in your Penn State career, Vietnam wasn't on anybody's.
Oh, I was definitely on the radar, yeah. That was 1962 when I started at Penn State.
Right.
And well, I guess you might be right. I guess in 1964 is really when the ruckus really started and the protests started. And
Gulf of Tonkin incident occurred
Yes.
in the summer of '64.
Okay. Yes. Yes. So you're right. The first 2 years at Penn State, I was at McKeesport campus. At that time, McKeesport. Now it's a Still Valley campus, I think. And yeah, there was not a lot of talk about Vietnam at that time. But then when I got up to State College, and my junior and senior were up there, then yes, there was a lot of talk about Vietnam and what was going to happen, and people didn't want to join, and of course because now we're at war again. Whereas those people who joined before, the people who were drafted, they would spend time in some army or some barracks at some place, but it wasn't a conflict zone. And Vietnam was the first conflict zone that was really tough.
When did you receive your draft notice?
On my birthday, September 21st. I received it in August, actually. I was working at the Allegheny County Health Department, received it in August, but I had to report on my birthday, September 21st.
And so you knew it was coming, correct? The draft notice?
I knew it was coming.
Yeah.
Yes, because I had had the physical a couple of months before I actually graduated. I had the Army physical.
And what was your attitude toward it?
I'd better do something to see if I can get out of this. So
What did you do? What did you do to try and get out of
I
it?
tried to join the Air Force, actually.
Did you?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, yeah.
How'd that go?
It went pretty favorably. I've always wanted to be a pilot, so I decided to see if I could join the Air Force and be a pilot. So I went to the Air Force recruiter, and he took me. He actually flew me from State College to Washington, where I went through this pretty rigorous physical, and written test and eye test, the whole bit, and I think I passed it. I really think I passed it. Yes. But then I found out, I'm not quite sure how I found out, I can't remember, that I was already meant for the draft. Once you took a physical, that's it. You're drafted. You're not going into anywhere else. The government won't let you go in anywhere else but you take the physical. And I didn't know that. And in fact, this person may have been demoted or something, may have, because he didn't know. Maybe he didn't know that I had the Army physical at that time. So he wasted money by flying me down to Washington, D.C. to have this test taken and then flying me back.
So, what was your attitude when you learned that you were going into the Army? Did you have any fears, expectations?
I was going to use all my strength to get through it. All my mental strength and physical strength just to get through it. I didn't consider going to Canada. That's what you mean, because a lot of people did consider going to Canada at that time.
Yeah, talk a little bit about that. Did you know people who were going through extraordinary measures not to end up in the Army like you did?
No, not really.
Okay.
No. Most of my friends, in fact, were never drafted. Yeah, I don't know why either, but most of the, we call them the Kennywood crowd because grew up in Kennywood. I don't think any of them, well, my friends I know did not spend any time in the military. They were just never drafted. And why I was picked, I don't know. At that time, I've heard rumors, I don't know if it's true or not, that the draft board at that time consisted of people before the lottery. No lottery at that time.
They were absolutely people.
Yes.
Yeah, there were draft boards of 4 people, and most of them were World War II and World War I veterans.
Okay. And I think they may have been influenced by influential people. And my father was not an influential person. And that might be why I was drafted. I don't know. That's a speculation. I just don't know that.
Did you think that like basic training was going to be tough for you? That just the whole Army life, even if you were never sent to Vietnam, just the whole regimented Army life was going to be tough?
I thought it would be, yes.
Why?
Yes, because I was never one to, we'll say, conform, that type of thing. I was never one to conform to authority, put it that way. Yeah, it wasn't that bad. Basic training was not that bad. And when I look at the people that were in my unit in basic training, which was at Fort Gordon, Georgia at that time, they were in much worse shape than I was. My physical shape was not that bad, and they got me into shape. In fact, I was actually engaged to a girl when I graduated. And I remember after basic training, we had to leave before we went on to our advanced training, whatever it was. And I went to see her, and we had a date. And I remember her telling her, if I would put my arm around her, wow, it was definitely a lot stronger than that, and I may have even been hurting her. Yeah, so the army definitely put me in shape. Yeah, I couldn't run a mile beforehand. Afterwards, I could run maybe 2 miles in combat boots, that type of thing.
Wow.
Yeah, but it was bearable. It was bearable as long as you didn't get on the wrong side of the drill sergeants. It was bearable.
And what was the understanding you had with your girlfriend? You were engaged.
Yes.
And were you to get married out when you were out of the Army? Was that the
Yes,
idea?
yes.
That was the plan?
Yeah, I was not going to. I was not going to marry while I was in the Army because I was just afraid of what might happen. So.
Did you? I imagine in basic training. Again, this is all me imagining. In basic training, a sergeant yelling at you, "I'm sending all your asses to Vietnam. You're gotta." I mean, was Vietnam on his lips as they were training you? Like, when you go to Vietnam, you better get your butt down and
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because in 66, 67, when I was there, that was the time when they had the maximum number of people in Vietnam. They had over half a million soldiers in Vietnam at that time. So we knew that there was a very good chance because most of the people in the Army did get sent to Vietnam at that time.
When did you get your orders to go?
Well, to go to Vietnam?
Yeah.
About a year later, in August of 1967. Maybe it was June of 67. Sometime in the summer of 67.
And before that, before you got those orders, you were fully trained then as a,
Combat medic, yeah.
how did you become a combat medic? How did that work?
I had a bachelor's of science in chemistry, and they looked at the bachelor of science in chemistry, and instead of putting me in chemical warfare, which would require me to be an officer, they made me a combat medic.
What did your parents have to say about you going to Vietnam?
Don't remember.
You don't remember?
Yeah, they certainly weren't happy about it. I mean, I wasn't happy about it either. But,
Right.
but yeah, what we do about it? I had one of the choices I guess I had was to go to Canada and not go, and it was not something I wanted to do because at that time I still supported the Vietnam War because we were going to stop communism. So, yeah.
What was your first, do you remember your first impression when you landed in Vietnam?
In Cam Ranh Bay, when they opened up the plane, yeah, just like many of the other veterans said about Korea and about the places where they went. They said, in Korea, they said it was cold. Yeah, well, this was in August of 1967, and it was hot. Yeah, it was hotter than even Pittsburgh gets. Pittsburgh does have some extreme weather sometimes, and it gets hotter there. Then getting off the plane, then it was a different impression. First thing I saw were these troops. They had the steel pot on, of course, and what they were doing, they were filling sandbags and building up this sandbag. They hear, and I said, "Uh-oh, okay. I know that there's potential trouble now because the reason they're doing that is to something they can hide behind for artillery and for enemy fire, that type of thing." So even in Cam Ranh Bay, they had to protect against that.
So there was a sense that, okay, there's really a war going on here.
Yes, it's really a conflict. Yes, yeah. It actually wasn't a war. You know that. Yeah, it was called a police action, I think, and because Congress never did declare war, just like in Korea, they never declared war either. So, yeah.
And so where did they send you? Where did you go from Cam Ranh Bay?
We were processed there, first of all. Then they sent me to, they actually sent me to my unit in Duc Pho. But then in Duc Pho, what they did is they wanted to kind of introduce me to the kind of atmosphere, the type of thing that I'd be doing when we went out on these missions. So they sent me to Pleiku. Pleiku is up in the mountains, and there was a base up there, and I remember that base too. I mean, that was even more secure. They had all these Claymore mines around, and all the Claymore mines were in concrete, so to be sure they could face that way, they couldn't be turned around. And so, yeah, so I just got a sense that, yeah, I mean, you just listen to what you're told, and just do what you're told, and that's going to be the way that it is. You do what you're told.
So you're a smart guy, so you must have been taking it all in, how everything works. Keep your eyes open, your ears open.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Get a sense of the lay of the land,
Yep.
How you behave when something happens, who you trust, I don't know.
Yeah, I knew I was going to be there for a long period of time because I was sent to Pleiku to participate in this mission. And they didn't tell me it was a training mission, but I know it was a training mission now because we were out with a brand new second lieutenant, a sergeant who was an old salt. He knew what he was doing, and a squad, maybe like a platoon perhaps, a dozen people or so. And we were going to go out and we were going to participate in what was billed as an overnight ambush. Okay, so, and I knew the lieutenant was new. He'd never been there before either because he had the map and he was supposed to lead us to this place. It was supposed to be perhaps a 2-hour hump, they call it, and to get this place, we were going to set up camp there. And we started out early afternoon, and he took us through this Montagnard village about 5 different times because he couldn't read the map. Yeah. And so it was starting to get dark, and he was getting frustrated. Everyone was getting frustrated. Saying, "Well, we're just sitting here and doing an overnight ambush here." But no, the sergeant, he went up to the lieutenant, and he was good enough to say, "Sir, can I be of help?" And the lieutenant was gracious enough to say, "Yes, show me what's happening." And at that point, then about 15 minutes, half an hour later, then we got to the place where we were going to stay overnight for the overnight ambush. Yeah.
Could you set the scene a little bit about what you're wearing, what you look like at that time? I mean,
my gosh.
Are you wearing a helmet with a red X? Or?
No. Oh, no.
No? Tell me.
That's Korea. No, the uniform I wear was no different than any other uniform. Yeah, the only difference in my uniform The only thing that differed between my uniforms and the other uniforms was that I carried a medic pack, and if I wanted to, I could carry a 45 too, because I qualified with a 45. I was never offered that opportunity. I probably could have. If I'd asked them for 45, I probably could have gotten it. But no, and there were no markings except the medic pack. I carried an M16 just like everyone else carried an
You
M16.
carried an M16?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
As a medic?
As a medic, yes. Yeah. Yeah, I was not a conscientious objector, and those were the only people that did not carry the weapons. So, no. In fact, I was expected to participate in the firepower anytime there was a battle, too. And we got into a couple of them, yeah.
Can you tell me about your first experience of combat, what it was like?
First time, yeah. We went through a number of missions, and the one time when we were coming back, there was some fire that came from some bushes in our area. And of course, I mean, the first thing I did, since I was a medic, I was looking to see if anyone was injured and if anyone needed any help. And no one needed any help. So what the lieutenant said is, okay, everyone, gather in a line and start and shoot in that general area, everywhere. Shoot there, and we're going to approach that area while we shoot. So we did. Shot, bang, bang. We walked towards that area, got to that area to see if we could find out who it was that was shooting at us. And yeah, I mean, nothing happened. We didn't find anyone. I mean, these guys were long gone. They saw they're going to take a couple of shots at us and then just go. So.
Tell me what your unit was.
Pardon, my unit?
Yeah.
I mean, the 2nd of the 35th, you mean? The Charlie Company, 2nd, I think it's Battalion, 35th Infantry. Yeah, I'm not sure what the designations are, but it's the 2nd of the 35th is how I know it, in Charlie Company, and in the 4th Division.
What were the guys in Charlie Company like? Did you like them? Were you close to them?
Okay, I think I can talk about maybe one incident. The first day that I got to my unit in Duck Pho, where I was going to spend a lot of time, the RTO, that's a radio telegraph officer, associated with the platoon that I was associated with at that time, threatened to kill me. Yeah. Yes, he was, we started talking, and he started saying things about friendly fire. You know, some people were injured by friendly fire, and giving me this look. I'd never met him. I'd never met him before, and he was just very, very hostile towards me. I don't know why, but maybe he was testing me, whatever, and I think he was looking for my reaction for it, and so what I told him was that, okay, I appreciate the warning, but you better remember that when we're out there walking, I'm walking behind you, so you better be on your guard too. And that was it. And from that time on, we never said anything to each other after that, during the whole time I was in Vietnam. I never made friends with him, but nothing ever happened after that.
How often would you go on missions? How often would you go into the villages?
Every day.
Every day?
Yeah, go in and come back, yeah, every day.
Same villages?
No, oh no, different village all the time. A village where the intelligence said that there might be Viet Cong.
Every day you were doing that?
Yeah.
As a whole platoon or a whole company?
The whole company, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Whole company would?
Yeah, we would either march into the village, or sometimes we might, the officers would say they would like to surprise the villagers and maybe catch a couple of Viet Cong that might be in the village. And so we just flew on helicopters. Many times those helicopters. Yeah, so I was one of the guys who flew on a helicopter, Hueys, UH-19s I think they were, and I flew into a village and jump off the helicopter and the whole bit.
The whole bit, just like the movies.
Yes, that's just like the movies, yes. Yeah. Yeah, machine gunner would fire a couple of, essentially, dispersion rounds into the various bushes, because so if anyone was there, make them run, that kind of thing. So, and never a dangerous time. You know, the only, dangerous times were on overnight ambush. Yeah, but no, during the daylight, going into a village, there was very little conflict. In the villages itself, we just gather up all the people, put them in one area, and then we just start to search for food.
Did you ever find anyone?
Did
you ever find any Viet Cong in these daylight searches?
No. Nope. No, because they all left. They all left the village. The only people that were in the village were kids, females, and really old people. Yeah. Anyone who was capable of combat were never in the villages when we got there. They had gone long before we got there.
Did you ever treat wounded?
Yes, I did.
Tell me about what that's like.
The first person that I treated was a victim of it was a booby trap, actually. It was some kind of a mine or whatever that was sitting on a piece of cardboard, and whenever the troop stepped on the cardboard, it exploded. And unfortunately, it took 3 of his limbs off. It took his feet, took his legs off, both of them above the knee, and took one of his arms off. He had 1 arm, and that was about it. And we treated him. I tried to treat him, and I called the head medic over too, the person I reported to. So between the 2 of us, we tried to stop any bleeding that there was. There was no bleeding because it was all traumatic, and tried to put some burn solution over the burns, that type of thing. And the head medic was helping me, but we learned later when he got in the helicopter, he died. Yeah, and then the second person that I treated was another victim, another booby trap. And that one was scary because we were walking along railroad tracks. And there was one area that was kind of we'll say, there was wood on both sides, so we were forced to go through one certain area in the middle of the tracks. And I saw people there that were looking at that area from a distance. And as soon as they saw there were troops coming down, they left. Yeah, no, and I mean, I was in a platoon at that time, which I did not like the commander, and I was reluctant to tell him anything because I was afraid that he might retaliate or do something for me. I didn't know. But anyway, when we got there, he went through, point man went through, then I went through, and one other person went through, and then the person who was carrying the machine gun, he's the person that they decided to blow up. Yeah, so 2 people behind me. And, yeah, that's kind of like the whole experience here was kind of like that. You know, if you were going to be injured, you were going to be injured, and there was absolutely nothing you could do about it. So there's no use worrying about it. You just do what you're told and go on and do everything. And when you're injured, you're never going to know it until you realize that you're injured. And so, you know, it's not something that you should really be concerned about it. I slept very well over here every night.
You really did?
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
These daily missions, you're talking 7 days a week?
Yeah, 7 days a week.
You worked 7 days a week?
Yep. Yep. The only way we knew it was Sunday was because the chaplain would come around and to celebrate a mass with people wanted to come to a service. That was it. Other than that, yeah, every day.
Did you get tired?
Oh yes, definitely. Yeah, that's probably one reason why I slept so well at night. Because we'd go out at dawn and come back a couple of hours before the sun would go down, and settle in, that type of thing. Of course, then there were overnight ambushes, and there was some point where I don't know if the command structure was getting frustrated that we weren't finding the Viet Cong. They wanted to know what was happening, and so they said, we're going to send squads out for overnight ambush. Yeah, squads for various platoons. And let's see, we had 4 medics because we had 4 platoons, then the chief medic. And more often than not, the 3rd platoon was the one that got picked for it because the guy who was in charge for it, Lieutenant Blazemore, I think his name was, yeah, he was anxious to get ahead. He was 2nd lieutenant, and he was always ready for anything. So when the captain would come in and say, okay, who's volunteering for overnight ambush? 5 seconds later, I'll do it. And of course, I was in there. And I mean, they never asked me to go out, but I felt that I had to because if someone was injured, then I wanted to be able to treat them. So I went out with them on a number of overnight ambushes.
What were these like? Explain them. Describe them for us, please.
At first, it was a matter of just going out very, very quietly, getting into some place that had been selected in advance, and settling down, and then I will say taking shifts and sleeping. Okay. And if nothing happened, then you just came back the next day. You came back in the morning, and with very, very little sleep. You maybe had a little bit of sleep, but you had guard duty, and you were looking out for people that were coming that you could ambush. Okay, well, excuse me. That changed on one overnight ambush when, once again, 3rd platoon went out, and I was with them again. And this time, instead of people got bored on overnight ambush, and they just didn't have the discipline to stay awake. So almost everyone fell asleep. There were 2 people that were awake, and then one was the Lieutenant Blazemore, I think that was his name, the platoon commander, and the sergeant, forgotten his name, the platoon sergeant. They were awake, and there were two places that were set up, and the Viet Cong, they may have been NVA, North Vietnamese Army, and we were told by radio that there are people coming down the path, and so the lieutenant says, "Okay, come on, set up. Let's set up. We're going to get ready to ambush these people." Then they didn't hear anything from this other area where there were troops set up, and we find out later. So you see him coming down the road, and they say, "Okay, set up. Come on, get ready, and no one was awake, and he couldn't wake anyone up because it would cause too much noise. They would know exactly where we were. And the strangest thing, the reason that the other platoon, the other section didn't say anything is because it didn't turn out there were a few North Vietnamese. There were about 30 of them. Yeah, coming down this road, and I guess they were hidden. They didn't see the first section, but then they came and they saw us, and everyone was sleeping, including me, by the way. Even though I was supposed to be guarding, I was supposed to be looking down that area and making sure no one came from here. They came from the opposite direction, and what happened was, we found out later, was that they looked at us and they had these grenades in their hand. They looked very, very quietly. They just walked away. Yeah, they didn't do anything to us. They just walked away, and they were walking away. And as they were walking away, that's when I woke up because I heard something walking away. I woke up. See, what? The people. I must be dreaming. No, there are troops. There are troops right there. So I went like this. And then the guy in the back of the of that unit, he pounded his buddy and said, look, they see us. So I think he was afraid we were gonna go after him at that point. And but no, we didn't. The lieutenant waited until they were out of sight, then he woke everyone up, and he called in the helicopters and the gunships and everyone else to try and find him and try to do something about it. But yeah, that's probably the second closest I ever came to being killed, because I'm sure that grenade they had and the grenades other people had, they could have just lobbed it. Everyone was sleeping. They just never woke up. It was a crazy experience. You know? Then after that, then we had 100%. Everyone was asleep 100%. No more shifts. Either you were awake or that was it. So. But okay, so that's overnight ambush. But most of the overnight ambushes, nothing would happen. It just that happened. There was another time we were in a village, and then what they decided to do was that 3 platoons would leave the village. The 4th platoon would sit there and set up an ambush in secret, so that no one could see them set up the ambush and wait for the people to come back, because it figured since the Viet Cong had left before they went to the village, then the Viet Cong would come back into the village after we left. And of course, that's exactly what happened. And yeah, there were a number of people that were killed in that ambush. Yeah, no Americans, but there were a number of Vietnamese that were killed. One time we were walking once again along railroad tracks, and we could see in the distance that there were people that were kind of surreptitiously going through brush, pretty tall brush. And the lieutenant said, "Okay, well, we don't know who they are, so let's shoot them." So everyone fired. Then when they went out to investigate who they were, they found out they were just kids. They were kids that were in there. I don't know why they were there in the first place, but they did succeed in killing a couple of kids. That was it. They mistook them for Viet Cong.
How'd that make you feel?
Not very good. Yeah, it's difficult to talk about that.
Were you one of the ones firing?
No, I wasn't. No.
Was this common? Did that happen a lot, do you think?
Yes,
Okay.
It did, yeah. Yeah, there were Vietnamese that were killed that perhaps didn't have to be killed, let's put it that way. Yeah, they had these, in some villages, they had these bunkers where the kids would hide in. They'd hide from the American troops. I think they were called bunkers. I've forgotten. And of course, someone had to go in and they had to flush them out. And so, I mean, not me. I was a medic. I didn't do that type of thing. But the troops would go in, and one person, and he was a buddy of mine. I've forgotten his name. Great guy. He would go in with a .45, and just look around, and sometimes there would be a kid that was hiding in there because he was hiding from the American troops. He feared us, but he had every right to fear us. And what he said is he tapped him on the shoulder, and that was it. He fired around. He said, got out of there while I was firing behind him. And yeah, he killed him. But it was a kid. It was just a kid. The kid that would not come out of there. Yeah, and we had pre-warning too. One of the old ladies there pointed to the bunker, and I think no one knew Vietnamese there. We didn't have a translator. But we kind of got the impression that someone was hiding in there. A kid was hiding in there, and even though we wanted him out, then he wouldn't come out. Just wouldn't come out. No.
Did these experiences make you question this war? When did that happen in your tour?
When I saw in general how the Vietnamese were treated by our army, and it was pretty bad. Pretty bad. You asked me before what I thought about the Vietnamese people, and I have nothing but the greatest respect for them. Even though we came into this one village, I remember that, and to search it and maybe destroy it, I don't know. But I was walking past one of the huts there, and inside that hut was a whole family, and they were sitting down at some kind of a meal. And so they saw me, and they invited me in to eat. Yeah. M16, the whole bit, they invited me in to eat, yeah. Yeah, they were fantastic people.
And you did? You went in and ate with?
No, I wasn't permitted to.
You were not permitted?
No. I couldn't do that. No. But no. And then the one of the platoon commanders I did not like at all. He would come in, and I think he was asking questions or whatever, and I think they couldn't answer him, and maybe they weren't answering him fast enough, and so he just took his carbine and just pounded on the table, to try and get their attention. And yeah, that scared them. Broke a couple of their glasses, that type of thing. And of course, then we all walked out.
Were you alone in your reaction to this and thinking that there was something wrong with the way U.S. soldiers were treating the Vietnamese people, or were?
I never discussed it.
You never discussed it?
No. Nope.
So you might have been alone in your platoon.
I might have been, yeah. I don't think I was, because there were a few of the troops also that, this one lieutenant, that I don't like. A number of things that he did that I just did not like at all. They were bad. He actually caused one of the troops to murder one of the Viet Cong, or one of the people that were there. I don't know if he was a Viet Cong or not, but he was an adult of combat age, that type of thing, and he was murdered, not by the lieutenant, but by one of the other machine gunners, in a situation that just revolted me.
So this was a man who was not armed. He was a non-combatant,
Correct.
Visibly non-combatant.
Now, I don't know if he was a non-combatant, but he was definitely not armed.
He was not armed.
Yeah.
He may have been a Viet Cong.
Yeah. He had a smirk on his face when he was captured and brought the lieutenant and said, "Hey, we captured this person." He had a smirk on his face. The smirk might have been that he knew that he was just going to go back. He was going to be taken to some kind of a interrogation facility, questioned, given a good meal, and then sent home. And that didn't happen.
A machine gunner just shot him?
No, there's a lieutenant that egged him into shooting him, and that's what I didn't like. The lieutenant kind of gave the impression that, hey, what are we going to do with this guy? Something like that. What are we going to do with him? I can't handle this. What are we going to do with him? And then that's when the machine gunner said, "Should I kill him? Lieutenant, should I kill him? Should I kill him?" And he did. He was a machine gunner, shot a couple rounds, killed him immediately. And then after that, the lieutenant said, "You just committed murder." Yeah, I remember that. But of course, nothing ever happened. I'm not sure why he said that. And the guy was a sadist as far as I was concerned. The lieutenant was a sadist.
What were your thoughts at night when you were able to stay awake before you fell asleep at night? This must have been an experience that was completely against what you had thought it was going to be like.
Absolutely, yeah.
What was going through your mind?
I had to absorb it. had to absorb it. You had to deal with it and either make it affect you in some way or make you, should I do something about this? And that was out of the question as far as I was concerned, because it's the Army. They have complete power over you, so you deal with it. You do what you're told the whole bit. That was the other instance. I mean, that was one of the reasons why I say you just deal with it.
So you push it away because the next day you've got to go on a mission.
Yep.
And you've got to survive that day and the day after and the day after and the day after.
Yes.
So you just push it out of your mind.
Right. Yeah. Survive. Get through it. That's all.
When the My Lai massacre became public,
That was in 1968. Oh, I'm sorry. No, the My Lai massacre. When was that?
it was on March 16th, 1968, but it did not become public until 1 full year later.
Okay, 69.
So you would have been home by then.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
When that hit the news, and it was big news, what did you think?
I'm not surprised. Not surprised because, yeah. I remember a couple of people asked me about it, and I told them exactly. I'm not surprised because I've seen stuff that perhaps not comparable to that massacre, but definitely just as horrible. Just as horrible as that massacre. But for individuals rather, not for a whole village. Yeah. And yes, I did want Lieutenant Calley to go to prison. That was my personal opinion because I agree that I think that he really did abuse the Vietnamese people and he should be punished for it.
Could you tell me about getting wounded?
Yeah. We were transported. We were transferred from the Duck Bow area where things would be pretty much under control. I think they finally came to the conclusion that very much is not happening down there, to Chu Lai. And Chu Lai is just below, is near the Da Nang Air Force Base, up in that area. In the highlands, it's a more mountainous area, I guess. And I had no missions yet, but we were on a hill. And I think we did go on one mission and came back, nothing happened. And I think it was December 24th. The next day was Christmas, December 25th. So we set up camp on a hill once again, and the Christmas ceasefire came. And during the Christmas ceasefire, what happened was we could look over to the next hill, maybe a couple hundred yards away, and there were two men, I don't know if they were kids, men, whatever, walking up the hill carrying this tube on their shoulder. So we said, oh boy, they're getting ready to set up an artillery. So as soon as the Christmas ceasefire ends, we're going to be shelled, that kind of thing. And I think the lieutenant did order a shell there during the ceasefire. He ordered a shell there to either scare them away or to do something. And they did. I'm pretty sure there was a shell during this Christmas ceasefire. At any rate, after the Christmas ceasefire, it's 6 o'clock Vietnamese time, after the Christmas ceasefire, a couple hours after that, I was in a tent with two of my buddies, and we had comic books. And I asked, hey, can I read one of your comic books? And they said, fine, yeah. So reading a comic book. Then all of a sudden, I was on the ground, looking up, and I didn't know what happened. I couldn't figure out what happened. So very uncomfortable, and maybe having a kind of a tough time breathing. And it took me about, to me, maybe 15, 20 seconds to realize, hey, I've been injured. Yeah, so. And it was an artillery shell. My first thought was, oh, those kids, they lobbed a shell at us, and it hit here. And in fact, there are two other shells that I heard too. I was hit by the first shell. The two other shells were off in a distance, and I thought, maybe they were aiming at some other part of the mountain, whatever. So there were a total of 3 shells, yeah. And I was injured. I was on the ground and having a tough time breathing. I said, oh boy, I better find out how bad I'm injured. Okay, and I'm not sure. I guess there was a moon out because it blew the tent away, and I could see myself. I could see. I'm looking around. I looked over, and there was my arm hanging by a piece of skin about like that. And I said, "Oh, that's it. I'm going to be an amputee for the rest of my life."
And what was the nature of the injury?
It was called a shoulder disc articulation, and that is that bone itself actually popped out of the shoulder socket. It blew the shoulder. It hit the arm so bad it popped right out of the shoulder socket. But there's lots of other shrapnel that was associated with it, so the arm itself was also really, really beat up, and it just, like I say, there was that little piece of skin there that was attached to it. That was it.
Were you then hit in other parts of your body?
Yes, yes, yes. I was hit here. You might see the scar here. Hit here. A good shrapnel here, here, and pretty big piece of shrapnel right about here also. Yeah. But the biggest part, I guess, was the arm. That big piece that just took the arm and almost blew it away.
So your first thought wasn't dying.
Right, right. Yeah. That didn't come until later because I started checking everywhere else, and I was injured nowhere else except I was bleeding here, so I knew that I had a problem in this area, and I had a problem breathing, although it wasn't a real problem breathing. It was kind of like a raspy breathing type of thing. So I knew that I had some kind of a problem here too. Oh, but then my next thought was about dying because it was at night, and I was told that the dust-offs don't come into units at night to rescue because it's just too dangerous. So I figured, well, that's it. Someone's going to come up with a Jeep, and I may or may not make it, and so I could die from this. That's what I realized.
And you could bleed to death.
Pardon?
You could bleed to death.
Yes, I can bleed to death.
Did you make any attempts to stop the bleeding?
There is. The other medic, after the artillery shell stopped, then a couple of other medics came in, and they saw me and they started treating me. And I remember the one medic saying, the first thing we're supposed to do is to stop the bleeding. And they looked over and they said, Sergeant, he's not bleeding. And of course I wasn't, because with that traumatic of an injury, the arteries and the veins, they contract. They relax later, but they contract right there, so there was no bleeding.
Pain?
No. Discomfort.
Discomfort.
Just discomfort, yes. Yeah, no pain.
And so they put you on a litter and put you on a Jeep or a truck?
No, the helicopter actually came in. Even though it was at nighttime, the helicopter came in. And I mean, the one mistake they did make was that they didn't put a blanket over me. I could feel myself going into shock. And they put me on the helicopter, and it was an open air, so that the cold didn't coming in all the way to the field hospital. And I just shivered to try to keep the shock wave, shivered to keep the blood circulating. And I made it. Helicopter landed, I got out, I was the first one on the operating table. And then they put me under anesthetic to treat me.
And you're a cerebral guy, and you had all this training, so I could imagine you thinking about what was going on with your body.
Sure, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so they put you on the operating table, and your last memory is just, did they give you gas or something?
They did, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, put a mask over me or maybe it was an IV, I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, but then I just dropped off, yeah. When I woke up, they were treating other people, and I was still on a block someplace else. I guess they stopped any bleeding that they could stop. They started treating some of the other 15 people that were injured. So, but then after a couple of minutes, they put me back under. And then my next memory is being in a bed in a big ward, waking up.
What is a bed in a big ward like that like? Is it like clean sheets? And
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, if the one thing the Army is, if nothing, is clean. They have inspections, and the hospitals are very well run. I mean, you can imagine the MASH units, that type of thing in Korea. That's what it kind of reminded me of when I was on that bed, the MASH units.
what did you feel like when you woke up with one arm?
Dizzy. Oh, with one arm, I was disappointed they hadn't taken it off yet. I knew they couldn't save it, but they hadn't taken that little piece of skin off yet to take it off. It was still there. It was still
Your
tied
arm
to
was
me.
still there?
Yeah, it was still there. Yeah. The reason was I think they wanted to make an evaluation to see if they could save it. They wanted to look at the injury. They wanted to look at the damage done to the arm from the shrapnel. So they cut off the uniform, and they wanted to make it. They wanted to see. I mean, they had a lot of time to do that. They had a lot of time to decide whether or not they wanted to actually take my arm off or actually save it.
But what did that do to you mentally to see this useless arm? Did it not bother you?
It did, yeah. It did.
Mentally?
Yeah. Why is it still there? Why isn't it gone? I know it can't be saved. Why isn't it gone? And then I guess they put me under again, and the next time I woke up, it was gone. Yeah, and they said the doctors came to me almost apologetically, saying, we were considering trying to save your arm, but there was too much damage to it, so they just took it away.
How long did you remain in that hospital?
I think about a week or so, something like that.
That must have felt like a long week.
Oh my gosh. I don't know why, but I do remember when I woke up on that bed that 5 minutes seemed like an hour. Maybe it was the effect of the anesthetic, well, whatever effect it was, but I'd look at the watch, and there was a clock out there. I'd look at the clock and try and make myself go to sleep again. I thought, I'm going to go to sleep. Okay, yeah, so, okay. Maybe it's about an hour later, that type of thing. 'Cause then I actually was in pain. Yeah, because the phantom pain from the arm is something.
So that's real.
Oh yes, that's real. Yes, that in fact fooled me when I was in the tent when the artillery shell hit me. When I was checking everything, I said, I'm not injured, okay, and I could still feel the arm. So I said, oh, they'll probably be able to save my arm because even though I can't move it, I can still feel it. Yeah. And then I looked over and I said, oh my gosh, no, ain't gonna happen.
Wow.
Yeah, I can still feel it right now.
You can.
Yes, yes. The phantom pain or the phantom feeling is no longer pain. It doesn't hurt at all now, except sometimes I get these tics that can be pretty intense on the arm, like muscle tics. And the muscle tics sometimes can be pretty painful. It doesn't happen often. but sometimes it does happen.
So you still feel phantom pain?
No, not phantom pain. I feel the phantom arm.
You feel the phantom? Tell me,
Yes.
what is, describe that.
Right now it's behind me. Yeah, and when I look over, it's even more behind me. It's through the chair. It's there. When I look over this way, now it's on this side of the chair. No, I guess it's not. Yeah, it's still there. I feel every bit of the arm that's not there. My brain refuses to give up the fact that it refuses to acknowledge the fact that I lost an arm.
How did they notify your parents?
They kept in constant touch with me. They sent telegrams and that type of thing almost every couple of days, because I was on the critical list, of course, and in the evacuation hospital I was on the critical list, and we went to the Philippines as a transit to Japan, and in Japan, where we got into this nice ward, I was still on the critical list. The reason was I had a fever. The arm was infected, and an infection came in, and I was running maybe like 102, 103 fever, that type of thing. That might have been one reason, too, why the time went so slowly at first, too, because the infection settled in and just destroyed the time. So my mother wrote to me a number of times saying, hey, you're on the critical list. Are you okay? You okay? And I'm just in the bed. I got a little bit of fever, but I'm going to survive. I'm fine. I guess the doctors were still really worried about me because I had that fever. And that went on for a week, maybe. No, more than a week. And they had me on penicillin every 6 hours by injection.
What's wrong with that?
Pardon?
What's wrong with that?
It's painful.
Is it?
Every 4 hours. Every 6 hours, you have to wake you up, and then every 6 hours after that. And you just don't get a chance to look forward to the next 6 hours because you know it's going to happen again, 4 times a day. So what I decided was, once again, okay, I'm not getting any better laying here. I'm going to do something. I'm going to do something to try to get better. I'm going to make myself better. So at that time, I got up off the bed. Didn't have any IVs or anything. Got up off the bed, started walking around. I found this ping pong table, and I asked if I could play. So there I was playing ping pong. And yeah, couldn't play very long, of course, because I was not in shape at all. Got back to the bed that night, slept great. Doctors came in, and the fever went down. Yeah, that broke the fever. That activity broke the fever. That I firmly believe that activity broke the fever. Came down and immediately took me off the injection penicillin to like about a half a dozen pills or so, 3 times a day, something like that. Those are like penicillin pills. But that was a relief. I mean, that made me happy because I did not like taking those injections. They were painful.
At Valley Forge, did you have to do rehabilitation for kind of how to live with one arm?
Yes, I did. Yeah, they made a prosthesis for me. They made an artificial arm, and I had learned how to use that.
And you did use it?
Oh yeah, I did use it. Yeah, yep. I used it. Let's say, I got into graduate school after that, and I taught one as a teaching assistant. I taught a laboratory, chemistry laboratory, and I used that arm to hook the whole bit. Yeah, They also use it for lectures.
What was it like to come back, a wounded veteran? Did people ask you about it? Did people talk to you about it? Did you talk to people about it?
I was, at that time, I was willing to open up about anything. And yeah, anyone who wanted to talk about it, I would talk extensively about it. I never pushed the subject because I know if it were in the opposite situation, I'm not sure that I would want that person to push the subject on me. So I just talk about it to the extent that they wanted to talk about it, and then just drop it.
And did they talk? Did they ask you about it? Did they talk to you about it?
People talk to me about it, yeah.
We get a lot of Vietnam veterans who tell us that when they came home, they felt kind of neglected,
Yes, yes.
spit upon, even looked
Yes.
down upon.
Yes.
Did you experience that?
No, I didn't. But one of the biggest reasons was that most of them came home not injured, or perhaps only slightly injured. So they landed at airports, and then when they got off the airport, there was no band to greet them, like in previous conflicts and that type of thing, and they certainly felt abandoned at that point. Me, I mean, we just landed in Valley Forge. I'm sorry, we landed in Philadelphia, took a bus to Valley Forge, and so there was never any opportunity to see anyone. We were kind of kept out of sight.
But even in the days and years that followed, did you feel?
I knew about the experiences of other Vietnam veterans saying that they were never appreciated, they were never welcomed back, that type of thing, and they became bitter because of it. That did not happen to me. No. It seemed like, I don't know, that before I lost my arm, the way many people reacted towards me was less friendly, and I don't know why, than after I lost my arm. Maybe because of a sympathy factor, whatever, but when people look at me, there was never any conflict, nothing like that. Whereas before I was injured, many times in my interactions with people, there were conflicts. But those conflicts seemed to be minimized after I came back as an amputee. And yeah, that was almost like an advantage. Yeah.
You gave so much to your country. Not many people do that. Is that how you think of it, or no?
No. What did I give to my country? I was in a conflict that was, I won't say unpopular, but in a conflict that was created by politicians who were interested in their bottom line. The so-called military-industrial complex. Yeah, and I've seen some specials about President Johnson, and it seemed to me this is exactly why he started this whole Vietnam War in the first place. After President Kennedy was assassinated, then there was pressure on him to send more troops to Vietnam, start something in Vietnam, and he finally gave in. He said, "Okay, you can have your war," and it was just to increase the military output. That was it. So no, that's not something I'm proud of.
What was the evolution of your thinking about that war when you came home? I mean, I know it sounds like you had already turned against the war when you were in Vietnam.
Yeah.
Did you continue that?
Oh yeah. Yeah. To this day, I think it was a wasted effort. To this day, did nothing. It was unnecessary. Well, I don't know. It's not the way that it should have been handled. It should not have been handled in such a way that it did nothing more than increase the output of our industry. It should not have been handled that way.
And yet, you're for that, poor a cause, your country ordered you to go and fight in it, and you sacrificed so much in that war. Don't you think people should know about that? This is what your country asked of you, and this is what you gave.
I think many people do know about it because my attitude is the same attitude that a lot of people have because of the publicity, because of the documentaries about the Vietnam War, because of the history.
What do you think of these recent wars, Iraq, Afghanistan?
I don't know. I'm not sure what to make of them. I'm not sure what history is going to make of them. The war in Iraq, I was one of the 20% that did not support it. I know 80% supposedly support it. I was not. I think because I thought about the Vietnam experience and the fact that it was for naught. And well, I didn't like President Bush in the first place. So And I knew that he was lying about his, well, I think that he was lying. He didn't have bad intelligence. I think he looked at the intelligence that encouraged him to go into Iraq. Now, Afghanistan I supported because Afghanistan was something that was meant to, I think, to try and teach those people, don't fool around with us. But Iraq was not.
When you see amputees from the Iraq War or Afghanistan, young veterans coming back, missing arms, missing legs, do you ever approach them? Do you ever talk to them?
No. Amputees don't do that. They don't.
Tell me about that.
Amputees, we want to get on with our life. It's an amputation. Of course, we know we have to deal with it. I know this person has to deal with his or her amputation. It's just not something that's something that brings us together, unless we're sitting on a plane together next to each other or bus together next to each other, that type of thing. Then we'll talk about it, yes. Or if I know them, if I work with an amputee, then eventually I'll certainly talk about it and ask them what happened. In fact, I remember going, where was it? Into a store recently in the past couple of weeks. And there was a woman that came in, and I look at women, looked at her. She was an attractive woman. And she walked past me. I noticed that she was wearing a dress just a bit up above the knee, and her one leg was an artificial leg, obviously an artificial leg. And I'm sure she saw me because when I saw her, she had just passed me. So I'm sure she knew I was an amputee. But no, there's nothing back and forth. I think at the register, I think we kind of looked at each other, and then she just walked away. That was it. So it's kind of like an acknowledgement, you know. Yeah, you're an amputee. You have to deal with some of the same issues I'm dealing with. We're doing it.
What issues do you have to deal with?
Can't button my collar button, the button on my this. There's a number of things I cannot do. Number of things I can't do. Number of things I can do. They might be surprised. I can tie my own shoes, and it might take me only like 2 or 3 times as long as it would take you to tie your shoes. But I can do that. In fact, when I started to run, and the athletic shoes don't come in the Velcro. I used to wear the Velcro shoes because it was easier to do that than deal with the shoelaces, but I can tie my athletic shoes with no problem. So I've learned to do that. What else? I can't. Things come up that I need my wife for help, put it that way. You know, as far as daily activities are concerned, a whole day can go by and I won't need help from anyone to do anything. But occasionally something does come up which I'll need help from someone.
Did losing your arm and otherwise being very badly hurt, has it kind of shaped your life in a deeper way, in a more profound way than just the inconvenience of not having a left arm?
That and the other things. For instance, after I got out of Valley Forge, I had to decide what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. Since I didn't have to sell pencils on the street. And so I thought that maybe I could go to graduate school. I was encouraged either to go to graduate school for something. And one reason was that the government would pay for it. There was a program called vocational rehabilitation. And that was a program in which when you go to school, the government pays everything. Tuition, books, and they give you living expense beside that too. It was fantastic. The government is fantastic about rehabilitating the Vietnam veterans, the Vietnam disabled veterans. They're fantastic about that. That's in addition to the disability compensation too. So I thought, okay, well, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to see if I can get a PhD in chemistry. Of course, I graduated from Penn State with a 2.11 out of 4. So the trouble was I didn't know if I was going to get into any graduate school. I tried Pitt first of all. I filled out the application for Pitt the whole bit. And I applied for the winter term, or the spring term they call it, rather than the fall term, because in the fall term there's just too many people going in, too many people rejected. And I never heard back from them, never heard back. And I was working as a chemist at the Allegheny County Health Department at that time. I had passed their test apparently pretty well. I remembered all the stuff from chemistry and I fit in right in. I had to use my arm many times, use the hook to hold test tubes and test sewage samples, that kind of thing. So, but they never responded. So I decided to take some action and go to the Department of Chemistry and find out, did they receive the application, or they got to do something, whatever. And that was in end of November, I think, after Thanksgiving. And so I did. I went and I managed to see this man Mr. Tabor. He was an administrative assistant. He was also an instructor in chemistry, an administrative assistant teaching that. And I asked him about it, and he said, oh, he looked over. He said, oh, yeah, your application's here. No one had taken any action on it. So he looked at it. He saw I was a veteran. And then what he did, I said, okay, he's going to look at the 2.11. He's going to say, forget it. No, we're not going to admit you because your average is too low. You need at least a 3.0, whatever. He called up a man named Bodie Douglas, who is the author of a really famous inorganic textbook also, because he was also on the admissions committee. And he said, Bodie, I have here an applicant who, I didn't know what he was going to say. He said, an applicant who shows promise. I said, oh my gosh. I guess that's all I could say, shows promise. I did good on my GREs, I know that, but for Penn State, they just, and I don't know why to this date, I did the full round at Penn State, but I just was not able to absorb the material. And I was admitted. I was admitted to the winter term, and it's all uphill from there.
Your Army experience just sounds like one bleak, bad experience. Is that how you think of it?
Vietnam was, yes. Vietnam was. Many of the incidents in my Army experience here in the United States, yeah, there were some negative experiences. Not a lot of positive experiences, but a lot of negative experiences. It's the Army. It's discipline. I never was a person who can, I was never like a team player, a basketball player, football player, that kind of thing. I was an individual player. I'm a pretty good ping pong player, by the way. And so that's good. Individual stuff, I'm good at that. But I was never a person that would cooperate with a whole group of people in something they were ordered to do. Never. So.
Did you have any buddies from the Army? Any friends?
No. Nope.
How about during the service? Did you have any people you were
Oh yeah.
close to? Yeah?
Yeah, when I was at Travis Air Force Base, yeah, I had some good friends, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, our backgrounds were different, but a man named Red, that was his nickname, Red Dieter, he was a good buddy of mine. We went into San Francisco lots of times for Travis Air Force Base and just just enjoy ourselves, you know, just be able to get off the base and go to a restaurant and be served by a waiter. He insisted on that. He insisted no buffets. When we go in, we're going to be served, rather than a buffet like the chow halls were. You know? So yeah.
Did you ever see him again?
After I left, no. I did learn that he came from a background that was, I don't know, I guess it was a disadvantaged background, but he was in the Army and he was about to get out. I said, oh, you're about to get out? Isn't that great? He had like 3 years in that type of thing. And we went into San Francisco one time, and he bought a gun. He bought an old gun. It was kind of like a classic. He knew a lot about guns. He bought an old gun, was a classic, and immediately went to a pawn shop to pawn it because he needed that money for something else. So that's when I figured, oh man, yeah, this guy's had a pretty tough background too. And I found out later, just before I went, that he had re-upped for 3 more years because of the bonus. So I kind of feel sorry for him, and I wish I could do something about that type of activity, about people with that background. But so yeah, I had friends there. Yeah, I think I had friends at Fort Sam Houston. Although mainly I would go to. Sometimes I would just take a weekend off for Fort Sam Houston and go into San Antonio and just spend a night at a hotel by myself. That's it. Not tour anything. Just to be away from everyone. You know. So. Yeah, but no, as far as the Army is concerned, I don't correspond with anyone who is in the Army. I've never tried to track them down. So.
Anything else, Kevin? You've come to our breakfast, and I appreciate that.
I appreciate you organizing these things because I had a good time talking with the World War II veterans.
Ted, this was a fascinating interview that was such an honor to do. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk about something I know you weren't very eager to talk about. So I'm very grateful to you.